Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game It's a Wonderful World. This was sent to me by Lucky Duck Games, and it's designed by Frederic Gerard, and artist is Anthony Wolf. Dear citizens of the Five Empires, today is a great day as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the end of the Great Wars. What a joy to live in a world where each decision of our beloved, wise, and charismatic leaders is motivated by the people's happiness. What a wonderful world of peace and progress we have built. We all know, we all follow. So this game is basically a drafting and resource production engine building game. Let me show you how to play. So in a wonderful world, you are trying to get the most victory points at the end of the game. There are 4 rounds where you draft cards. You can recycle some of them to acquire resources or slate them for construction to produce resources for future rounds. Each player starts with a civilization. You can start with the A side, which is recommended for your first game, in which each civilization has unique sort of starting resources and powers, or sort of end game bonuses. Or you can play the B side, where everyone starts with the same. Regardless of what you do, everyone starts each round with 7 cards in their hand. Now each round, you pass a different direction. So in the first round, it's clockwise. Second round, it's counterclockwise, and it swaps back and forth. And what you do is you choose a card, look at the cards, you choose one to keep, you place face down, and then you pass your hand whichever direction. Then everybody reveals the card they picked, so everyone can see what they did, and you do this until everyone has 7 cards. So you're gonna draft 7 times, or 6 times technically, I guess. Once all the cards have been drafted, then it's time for the planning phase, in which you must make a decision for each card that you drafted. You can either slate them for construction, or you can recycle them for parts. If you decide to construct a building, you can place it into your construction area, and then if you decide to recycle it, you collect the recycling bonus. So a card like this tells you what you would get if you threw it away. So you would discard it, and you would collect 1 resource, in this case an exploration cube of that color. Once you've decided which ones you're going to recycle and or construct, then it's time for the construction phase. So let's say I did this, and this, for example. So at the start of the game, I have 2 gray cubes, a black and a green cube. I also have this blue cube that I got from recycling, and let's say I did black, gold, and gray. I recycled these cards as well, so I have some resources to spend. Now, whenever I produce cubes, I can place them either on my empire or on the cards that I'm trying to build. So in the production phase, once you've slated your cards for construction and recycled them, then you go through each of these 5 colors in order. First is the gray materials. What you do is you count how many of gray materials you produce in your sieve and collect them. Then you compare who produced the most gray cubes that round. If it was you, this shows you get one of these blue financier tokens. Financier tokens are worth 1 point at the end of the game, and also some cards require financier tokens to be spent. There are also powers, like this sieve, that give you a point at the end, extra point at the end of the game for every financier token you have. Then you construct. Take the number of resource cubes and put them on cards, either in your empire. So let's say I decide to build this wind turbine. I build that. Now I will produce a black cube in that production phase. I find I like to kind of tuck them like this, but you can kind of do it however you want, because really all you need to see is the color cube. And yeah, anything you construct, you then produce that type of cube later on. You can also put cubes on cards, and they're not finished, but once they are completed, then you will get the bonuses or production bonuses. Now, if you place cubes onto a card, you cannot move them to other cards later. You also cannot save resource cubes for a later phase or round. So if I have extra gray cubes I produced, but let's say I couldn't spend them, then I put them on my empire card, and later those will be turned to Crystallium. I'll get into that later. Some cards have a construction bonus like this, where once I build the military base, I get a red token for free, and then I will construct a green and a gray cube every turn. Now I mentioned you can't save cubes for later, but you can transform cubes into Crystallium. So any resource cubes that you produce but can't put on cards go on here. And once you have 5 resource cubes, they immediately turn into a red Crystallium cube. Crystallium cubes can be kept indefinitely. They are wild cubes, and some cards require them for their costs. Now at any time, if you're like, oh, I can't construct this card, I'm gonna give up on it, you can discard it to collect its recycling bonus. However, any cubes that were on it get lost. Now that's pretty much the game. At the end of the game, you add up your victory points on any cards. Any bonuses, like this one is 3 points for every green building. Add up your generals, victory points, the red tokens, the blue tokens, and highest score wins the game. Otherwise, most cards in your empire wins. Actual game flow is pretty simple. You just build cards, go through the flow of producing and placing them on cards to build more cards. And then on later rounds, you'll have more resources for more cards. But let's just kind of look at some of the examples of what these cards are like. So something like Atlantis here, it's really expensive, but you get 2 points for every red general you have at the end. An industrial complex produces a gray and a gold on those phases, and you get a blue financier token for building it. World Congress, you get 3 points for every yellow building in your empire at the end. Parallel Dimension, 3 points for every green building. A lot of them are just sort of points for this type of color or points for these, and you just sort of go through, draft the ones you want to build, try to build them as efficiently as you can, and build up your resources so that you can produce more. And that's the game.
So there are a lot of games in this genre, like, collect resources, use those to build cards, and then those cards give you resources to build more cards. Your classic sort of resource gathering, simple engine building game. But this is actually one of my favorites in that genre. Theming-wise, yeah, it's a little shallow on the theme, and component-wise, it might be overproduced. But I honestly like the super extra presentation. They didn't need to go that far, but I appreciate it, actually. The drafting is always fun, I always enjoy that, and the fact that the production phases not only have a competitive aspect to them for earning the majority for points, but also go in a certain order is super fun. It can allow you to pull off really satisfying combos, like, okay, if I build this card that can produce black cubes, then I can produce extra black cubes on this phase, and then I'll have the majority, and then I can use some of these cubes for a late, to build this building, and that can trigger in a later phase. I also like that you can trash the cards for resources. That makes the drafting extra interesting of, okay, is this one what I'm going to build or what I'm going to recycle for parts? But that leads into my next point. One thing I should say about this game is that it's definitely one of the less forgiving games in this genre. In other games like this, you can kind of get away with, building whatever, or, I'm just going to put a bunch in front of me and see what I can try and build. But in this game, you really need to focus on what you need to build, what cards need to be trashed immediately, and you get rewarded for that efficiency. Because some of the buildings are really hard to build, and also because of how the production order goes, you really need to pay attention. Oh, okay, this one, if I build it now, it'll produce black and green later, and I'll have those that I can use for these cards. You're not going to have enough time to build everything you want to build, and oftentimes I see first-time players get overwhelmed with decision on how to pull that off. Even though I think this is a light game overall, because it's really just buy cards, build them, get cubes, build more cards. I do think in comparison to its peers of the same genre, it can be a little tricky for newcomers to wrap their head around the game flow. But all of what I just said, for me, is not a con. I actually love that about this game. I love efficient combos. I love pulling off exactly just what I need, get the exact right amount. Oh, and I can play this card. That type of gameplay is super fun for me. But if you want a game that's a little more forgiving, there are better options out there. Also, a rarity for me, I actually think I prefer the variant in this game where no one has any character powers or different starting resources, and you all start from the same. I appreciate that the starting variant is included because it can help newcomers build towards goals. They're like, I'm not sure what to do. Oh, well, my power is I get points for red general tokens. Okay, I'll just try to collect as many red general tokens as I can with buildings. That's a nice thing to ease players in. But now I actually prefer that everyone starts from the same spot and we just see how our civilizations differ naturally instead of like, this power is for you, this power is for you. I feel like having those powers makes it a little limiting actually, and like, okay, well I kind of have to go for this or else I'm wasting my starting power. Anyways, for me, this is a definite recommendation. I really enjoy this game. I think it looks great. It's not too dense, but it still offers a lot of thinking and strategy, and the gameplay is very satisfying. I enjoyed this one a lot.